Hello there. Namaste. So this is Seeking India's Forgotten Vegetable, and what I gather is basically the vegetable itself, the plant has become extinct, or the harvesting method behind them has been forgotten, because well, the history of India is when they were creating, and then Britain basically took over and put a halt on all kind of creating aspects. They were breaking the fingers and things like that of people who were creating stuff against the law of Britain. And in India, it was a mentor-student relationship that they'd teach the next generation. Maybe it became forgotten entirely on how to harvest these things. I mean, who knows?
The United Nations estimate that more than 90% of the farmers' varieties have disappeared from the farmers' fields in the last 100 years.
90%.
Food directly affects every aspect of our life. It affects the climate, it affects the economy. Bringing this awareness to the people means changing the way they behave today for a better future, for a sustainable future. I have had a passion for food and cooking right from childhood. As a food designer, I study the interaction that humans have with food and the cultural influences that surround it. So for us to understand what our food landscape could be in 10 or 20 years, we would have to go back and trace our past. And to do that, we will have to look at recipe books. One such recipe book that I treasure are the books that my grandmother left back. What sparked my interest was the fact that it had a lot of ingredients and vegetables that I did not know of. I hadn't seen them in my lifetime.
He really needs to take care of that thing. He either needs to copy it and rewrite the whole thing somewhere else and put that away, or photocopy, which I think photocopying is actually bad for pages, and put that away because it's ripping, it's tearing, it's going bad.
I had to find out why these vegetables were not present in the kitchens or why these vegetables were not present in the market. There has to be a reason to it.
Disappeared.
My name is Sangeeta Sharma. I work on sustainable agriculture. I travel the length and breadth of India to understand where the food equation was gone wrong. Why were we having to consume pesticides? And this search took me across villages, farmers, and that's when I understood that wherever I went, the farmers did not have access to their own legacy of seeds, their heritage of seeds. Seeds is the missing link. Seeds do not belong to the farmers anymore. They belong to a handful of multinational corporations.
Wait a minute, what? That actually makes sense. They harvest the plants, and then, well, the fruits and everything are inside the plants, and then they hand it off, and then they buy it later, the seeds in little bags of what they can plant on their own. That actually makes sense because they're selling their product, and the seeds are normally in the product. Oh my gosh.
How can we lose these indigenous varieties that are our heritage?
For us to find out the answers to these questions is very important. Only then we can prevent from such patterns repeating in the future.
We have over something like 29 varieties of lettuces and about 8 varieties of basil. Most of these varieties will not be seen in supermarket shelves because this food heritage is getting lost every day. This whole chain is controlled by a handful of corporations.
It would be sad to see such vegetables being presented in a museum, saying that these species went extinct.
Yeah, and it's basically primarily about what people want. Because like when I was in India, the one thing I noticed was almonds are everywhere, and I'm like, there is a 95%, I think it's higher than that, of the world's almonds all come from where I am at. Literally where I am at. And I'm just looking at just like, pretty much what I am about to eat came from where I am from. It's just like, what the heck? It's because, well, That's just the way it is. Like, that's why they grow so many here, because it grows easily. Sure, we can grow other things. There's a fig orchard right outside the window. They grow pistachios here and a few other things, but it's like almonds are the things that take to the soil so easily here, so they grow it in plenty. Of course, there was probably other things growing wild here that were edible that they got rid of just to grow more almonds, because people prefer almonds than sometimes this no-named vegetable or nut or fruit that people will use only once in only one dish. That's just but you think about it, some of those fruits and vegetables that are probably going extinct were used in medicines and things like that. We're losing a lot of things that could aid us down the road when we learn more. But we humans are very right now centric.
We must safeguard the indigenous varieties of not just India, but across the globe. We are blessed because we are connected with farmers across the nation who are growing crops without chemicals. And here today, we support them by providing them the know-how. We help them save their ecosystem's seeds so that they can propagate them.
Yeah, how to irrigate a farm without having to use like a canal, how to self-irrigate, how to use the rainwater you collect. That kind of stuff is always good to learn. Because you never know when the world's going to end to a zombie apocalypse, and you need to know how to garden for yourself. You need to know how to collect water. You need to know how to make clean water, filter water, which we basically need to boil it and then get all the sustenance and then rain it through a filtration system. Just a simple made filtration system. I mean, a shirt would work too. You could just run the hot water through a shirt, boil it again, but going off topic.
And safeguard those varieties that are being lost every day. As I speak, 200 species are getting lost. Who's held responsible for that?
For me, working with food is extremely satisfying. Some of these traditional vegetables, they can be shown how good they can taste when they are cooked in the right way. I'm extremely inspired by the work that Sangeeta does. If we don't have such seed walls and banks, these seed varieties would just get lost. But to bring these seeds to use, we will have to start cooking with them. I discussed with my mother and we said, okay, let's do a 100 days challenge where each day we cook with one of the under-recognized vegetables. There's a lot of engagement and they started contributing. The biggest surprise that I had was that a lot of them were right around us, like the pumpkin flowers or the moringa flowers. If you forage for them, you can find them in your street, in your garden. The notion that anything that you cook with has to come from the market or it has to be packaged in a fancy packaging. It's
Not really. I mean, I have a garden right outside the door that, or right that direction that's primarily a pepper garden, but grow onions, grow cilantro, grow celery, grow, I think tomatoes are growing there right now too. Because the season is time to plant, but there's several aisles of peppers. But yeah, it's good to grow for yourself and do it more organically, because the less chemicals used, well, better. I don't want my dogs running around that garden.
It's hard for us to accept that anything that grows around you that is edible can be cooked with.
That looks like guacamole.
So here we have rucola and onions. These are all the avocado. 12 varieties of brinjal is sown. We have chilies, fennel, basil.
I was right. He was making guacamole. If he was using avocado.
15 varieties of tomatoes that are sown here. This is carrots,
tomato,
parsley. There's rosemary
tomatillo.
there. Everything is here. In just 2 acres, we showcase a diversity as rich as over thousands of varieties coexisting. And if today we are reaping abundance.
I think one of the issues is when, crop rotation was introduced. You grow what you can, you turn the entire field. So for like 3 seasons, you're growing a completely different crop just to match what you can grow in that time of year, which is a good thing for like a big city, but for yourself, I mean, you just need a small patch. when it became more for a job to grow for everyone instead of like a community just growing within themselves.
It's because we respect the soil, we respect our planet, our earth. Seed cannot belong to a handful of multinational corporations. Seed is a gift of life to life itself.
That was interesting. That was interesting. It had me talking a bit. But yeah, it makes sense. So a lot of the things he had never seen before are things that people just stopped using. It seems like that was the case because people got so used to going to the store and seeing, well, the giant tomatoes. Because I honestly don't like the cherry tomatoes. I don't like those. I believe tomatoes belong to be cooked with, not to be, eaten like that. Or like the green tomatoes are used for like making chili, making salsa. That's what they're used for. In my experience. Then that's what I prefer it with, because that's the problem, is like everyone has different tastes, different perspectives, different wants. All that stuff go into, like he was talking about how people see food, but certain people don't like the texture of certain things. Like my mother hates pasta. She stomachs it, but she doesn't like the texture of it. I have my own issues with textures of food, and it is uncomfortable when I have to eat that type of food. But you do it just because it's the only thing available, or because someone was nice enough to make something. But yeah, that's just the way it is. Like my issue is like pinto beans. If they're not, because you boil them and everything, if they're not mashed, I can't eat them. It's there's something about the skin peeling off when you bite into it that just not good for me. It bothers me. But that's the thing. Everyone has their own interest. Everyone has their own taste. Everyone likes different kinds of flavors. Nobody likes the same thing. There's people out there who dislike cinnamon. There are people who dislike the smell of lavender. There are people like it's vast. The world is filled with a bunch of different people. So you can never make the one dish that, well, to rule them all. You can never do that. Thank you all for watching. This was actually pretty interesting. The fact that, well, it does point a light at things, because heck, I've been eating things that I probably would have never eaten just because it's being cooked properly. And well, it's not, I'm trying not to be picky. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Toodles.